This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we're talking about the greatest. Muhammad Ali passed away over the weekend, and we sat down with former Bates track star Allen Harvie, who attended the legendary Ali-Liston fight in Lewiston more than 50 years ago. We also talk with Bates squash head coach Pat Kosker about Bates Male Athlete of the Year Ahmed Abdelkhalik, and we chat with women's lacrosse head coach Brett Allen about Bates Female Athlete of the Year Hannah Jeffrey. That's coming up on this episode of the Bates Bobcast. Muhammad Ali, who will be forever known as the greatest, passed away Friday night at the age of 74 after a long struggle with Parkinson's disease. Ali's connection to Bates? In 1965, the heavyweight champ came to Lewiston to defend his title against Charles "Sonny" Liston. It was one of the most controversial fights in boxing history, with Ali knocking out Liston in the first round on what has been called the Phantom Punch. A number of Bates students attended the fight, including track star Allen Harvie. Harvie, who had a final exam the next day, was hired by United Press International to run film for the event. He never got his chance, with the fight ending in the first round. Harvie joined the Bobcast to share his recollections of the evening. When did you first hear that Ali was coming to Lewiston, and what did you know about him beforehand?
Well, we always knew of him as Cassius Clay, and
Right.
we couldn't believe it. It was about 2 weeks before the fight, and 1 week before the fight, Art Griffiths was the sports information director, and he'd called me over. He had some photos of me hurdling, and literally while I was sitting there, the phone rang, and he covered the mouthpiece and said, "Al, what are you doing next Tuesday night?" And I don't know. He said, "Well, it's UPI, and they need 8 runners for the photographers, so $20 a piece." I didn't make that much in Commons. So I ran right over to track practice, and my brother Keith, class 67, was there, and asked him, and I got 6 other runners. And we had a chance to go up to Poland Spring and watch Liston train. My God, I didn't think anybody could beat him. He was a bear, literally. And I got to shake hands with Joe Louis, and Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, was at the Holiday Inn in Auburn, which is now the Fireside Inn. And then we got to go to the fight, and amazing thing was, all the Bates students that used ruses to get in. Peter Heil, a classmate of mine, walked up to the front door with a typewriter and assistant. "I'm from University Press. You got to let us in." They not only let him in, they set him a special table ringside right next to Ali's mom and sister. Another student grabbed a white coat and a med kit, walked in. Others, we had white coats in the dining room, so they got potato chips and all that and got in. And it was amazing. The beginning of the fight, of course, Howard Cosell, the notorious announcer, was there, but in the ring they had Floyd Patterson, George Chavalis, the Canadian champ, Joe Louis, and then of course the famous national anthem with Robert Goulet. He literally had something written on his hand, and he said by the dawn's early night instead of light, and that followed him everywhere. But he was hammered, there was no question. He was shadowboxing all the champs. Word had it that he had a lot of relatives in Lewis and hit all the social clubs there. So, it was a one-time thing. I had a final the next morning. Some of the guys went to the party afterwards, but I had a final, so I couldn't go. But Peter Heil ran into the mother and daughter over there again, and Ali didn't drink, so he never went into the party. But he was on a balcony out back, and they went out, and he proclaimed, "I am the greatest," and it was just a memorable time. And then on the 50th anniversary, they produced a documentary called Raising Ali, Story of Lewiston. And my brother Keith were part of that, and John Jenkins, a Bates alum, former football player, sprinter. He's the only person ever to be mayor of Lewiston and Auburn. So we're in that. In our 50th reunion last year, we showed that. We had quite a few people get up and tell stories. And the president of this year's reunion asked us for the documentary. So alumni weekend, they're going to have that. So if you look for the class of '66, you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a real quick question for you about almost seeing the fight, but not really seeing the fight because you were screened, right? You were blocked. You were right by the ring, but you couldn't quite see the famous punch that may not have been a punch. Who knows?
Yeah, I was in Ali's corner and staring into Liston's eyes. I mean, I literally cringed. And, of course, he was knocked down, I guess. It looked like just a brace to the head to me. And then you're supposed to send Ali to neutral corner, and he just stood over him.
Yeah.
And they actually got up and started fighting again, but it's been documented. There was a sports announcer from Boston that hollered to the referee, "He was down, he's out," and they called the fight. I do want to recommend a great book, The Phantom Punch by Rob Snedden. He's a writer for Down East Magazine, and he was in town a month ago, and we got to go talk with him. The most unbelievable story. I can't believe the research he did, but anybody that's interested, you've got to read that book.
Excellent. As a college student, you were a senior, but was the atmosphere almost overwhelming for you somewhat?
It was. People were saying, "How can we go? It costs $25." That's a lot of money then, and then 50 and 100. I know of one person that bought $100 ticket, and he got there late. Never saw a punch.
Never saw a punch. Right?
A lot of people that happened to, but yeah, it was great remembering that last year, and then being in the documentary. I was called by the New York Times and Portland and Lewiston and so forth. So.
And then the building, I know, is still standing today. It's been renovated a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's now the Androscoggin Bank Coliseum, owned by a good friend of mine. Back then, it was the Central Maine Youth Center, and it was St. Dominic's Arena, associated with St. Dom's School. So it's changed. They paved the driveway, but it's amazing. I talked to Jim Cano. He says, "You wouldn't believe in the summertime, people come in here. They're from Sweden and France, and this is where Liston and Ali fought this fight." So, he did so much after his battle here with the fight for Parkinson's and funeral coming up, but really a great American hero.
And I know at the time, though, the crowd was booing him. And so what was that like? Because you mentioned off the air how you didn't really know about his political activism at the time personally, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
Oh.
They say that all the Bates students were hollering, "Fix, fix," and that's in the book. But I didn't remember that. I was just so excited of seeing all the former champs, and I don't really remember booing and cheering.
Right, I gotcha. And then, you knew him as Cassius Clay because he had just changed his name to Ali. Right. And what else did you know about him beforehand? Much at all?
Well, of course, I knew he was the Olympic champion, and being a track person, it's a different sport. But, that's about all I knew of him. I knew he had fought before and lost the crown and came back, but they just needed a place for their video for TV. They didn't care where it was. Right. And Sam Michael here in Lewiston, whom I knew, arranged it with Governor Reed, and all of a sudden, we got to walk down the street and see a world championship fight.
And it was kind of interesting because, obviously Lewiston has a long history. It was a booming town. It had some rough years. Now it's on the way back and whatnot. Did you see much change after the Ali fight, or was it just kind of in and out, and that was it?
Well, there was. This movie, Raising Ali, a Lewiston story, actually documents the changes, because I was told we never went downtown when I was here. Lisbon Street was bars and ladies on the corner and all that sort of thing, and night before graduation we went down with a large crowd, but we never went down there. I went to the hobby shop and I went down to Luigi's, but we didn't go downtown. And the Reformation with new restaurants and revitalization has been wonderful, and the Somali community, which has come in, has really adapted really well. But change is always tough.
Any other thoughts on being a Bates student and being essentially a witness to one of the most famous events in American sports history?
Well, just total surprise. To literally be sitting with Art Griffith when the phone rang, and all of a sudden, I probably ran the fastest 200 yards I ever did to get over to the gym, Actually, my older brother was living in Lewiston at the time. He was teaching here, and I forgot him. But we never had to work. We were going to take the film back to the locker room there, and never got to do that. So
When did you realize how historic the fight was? I mean, did you realize it would be this famous 50 plus years later?
yeah, I really did. I mean, Lewiston's always been a boxing town. I grew up in South Portland. My barber was a boxer from Lewiston. And the LA Museum in town has a wonderful section on boxing in Lewiston. We used to go to the fights in Portland, but I've never been to a fight since the Ali fight. I visited Louisville one time on an NEA convention, and that's what I thought about. This is where Muhammad Ali was from. It's been 51 years now, and certainly one of the highlights of my life.
Seniors Hannah Jeffrey and Ahmed Abdel Khalek were named the 2016 Female and Male Athletes of the Year as the Bates Athletic Department presented its end-of-the-year awards at the first Senior Athlete Recognition Ceremony in Alumni Gymnasium. Jeffrey followed that up by being named the Division III Goalkeeper of the Year for the second straight year by the Intercollegiate Women's Lacrosse Coaches Association. We caught up with head coach Brett Allen to talk about Jeffrey's outstanding career at Bates.
Hannah was one of those kids who reached out to us, like a lot of kids in high school do who are interested in playing in college. And she had been an ice hockey player as well in high school, and so she was initially interested in pursuing that. But she's not the biggest of athletes, and so I think once it became aware that she wasn't going to pursue hockey in college, she started focusing on lacrosse. And we got lucky because that was kind of a late decision for her, and so when she started playing club, she couldn't play with her age group, and I happened to see her at a tournament where she was playing with kids who were a year younger than her. And at the time, nobody was really recruiting other kids in that age group, so I happened to go see her play. I was one of the few coaches, I think, that probably saw her. She and I love to joke about it because she actually played terrible on the game I saw her. And I was thinking, oh, man, what are we getting into here if this kid decides to come to Bates? But I ended up seeing her play as a high school senior after she had applied and been accepted, and was very, very pleased with what I saw and kind of was expecting that we'd be getting somebody very special.
And how did she grow as a player over her 4 years here? Because obviously the last two were ridiculously great, and so was her sophomore year as well.
Yeah. I would say all 4 years were fantastic. I think, as expectations increase as you get older, the best athletes have to be able to continue to put in the work and sort of raise their level of play. And, as a freshman, obviously, she was the only goalie on our roster, so she played all the time. But she didn't really have any expectations for what to expect and how well she should perform. And then when she realized that she was very capable of doing well, and when our team realized that they had somebody in the cage that was pretty solid, I think leading into her sophomore year, those expectations started to rise. And that's, when she had kind of a breakout year, I guess, and was first team all-conference and all-American, and then her last 2 years were certainly pretty fantastic as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned her smaller stature, right? I mean, sometimes the stereotype is goalies are bigger so they can block more space, but she is smaller, so is that an advantage or disadvantage, and how did she adjust to that kind of to play goalkeeper?
Well, I think, playing goal in any sport, a lot of what you rely on is quick hands and quick feet. And, you never really can predict exactly where the shot's going to be going that you have to save. And so whether you're big, whether you're small, whether you're somebody who takes up more space in cage or not because of that height, or I guess lack of height, if you're quick and you see the ball well, because it doesn't matter if you're tall or short, if you have eyeballs, you're going to be able to make hopefully a quick read and get your body where the ball is.
I know for the Bates Male and Female Athletes of the Year, coaches who nominated their players made speeches in front of the other coaches, emphasizing why their candidate should be chosen. What was your speech like? What were some points you emphasized about Hannah?
Well, I think the thing with an institutional award like that, there's always going to be 4 or 5 kids, probably on both the male and the female side, that are deserving of the award. And so I guess what I tried to emphasize was how her numbers comparatively, from a statistical perspective, have been as good or better than basically any goalie that's been playing in the country since since she's been at Bates. I think it's really hard to compare kids from one sport to the other because they're all fantastic and they all do so much and accomplish a lot. So I actually tried to make it more about how she compared to other kids who play lacrosse in Division III, because I think once people are aware of that, then it's kind of hard to argue that she shouldn't receive a lot of consideration for an award like that.
I know you weren't able to go to the actual award ceremony because you were out recruiting, but I know the associate head coach and your wife Heidi was able to present the award. What was that moment like for her? What'd she say to you about it?
It's a really special moment. I was a little bummed that I was gone for the ceremony, but when Heidi and I talked about certain things that we should emphasize, it basically was a culmination of everything she's accomplished. She led the country this year in save percentage, which is, there's probably about 300 goalies in the country that qualify, and she had over a 58% save percentage, which is unbelievably high considering how close the shots are taken to goalies in women's lacrosse. She was a 3-time first team all-conference selection, National Goalie of the Year last year, and then at the time we didn't know she would be selected as this year's Goalie of the Year, but she was. And, I think certainly it helped this year that she backboned a defense that was, the lowest in the conference as far as goals against average, and sort of spearheaded our run to a bid into the NCAA tournament. So, I think it was just emphasizing all those things that she did and helped our team accomplish, which is why we really felt she was deserving of the award.
And obviously this year she was not the only goalie on the roster. You had a younger goalie, got to learn from her. So what do you think that was like?
Well, I think it's great. Recruiting goalies is so tricky in sports that require them because only one goalie can play. So you don't really want to have more than 2 or 3 on your roster because, only one's going to play. And that makes it hard for the other 2 to be really committed and engaged. And, I think Eliza, who will be a sophomore next year, understood that very well coming in. We feel very confident that she's going to be able to step in and perform very well. I don't think it's realistic for, any program in the country that loses a 2-time National Player of the Year in the goalie position to expect their replacement will be at the same level. But we feel really good about both of our goalies this year, or felt really good about both of them this year, and are excited for Eliza to have that opportunity to prove that she can be a very solid replacement for Hannah.
Sure, absolutely. Any other thoughts on Hannah's career here at Bates and the legacy she leaves for the women's lacrosse program?
Well, I think, the one thing I didn't mention earlier, you kind of asked about what made Hannah special. She had the ability to sort of just move on really quickly to whatever the next play was. So for a goalie, that's important because in the sport of lacrosse, you're going to get scored on. And if you dwell on the goals that you've already let up, it's probably going to impact the future shots you're going to see. And Hannah did just a great job of taking it one play at a time and not letting previous good or bad plays affect the next play. And so I hope that all of our returners, whether they're a goalie or not, recognize how important that is, because I think it certainly helped Hannah perform well and in turn helped our team have a good year.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Aaron.
Abdel Khalek's list of accolades is long and impressive. The 2-time national champion finished his squash career at Bates with an 89-2 record and was a 4-time NESCAC Player of the Year. Head coach Pat Kosker looks back at the award ceremony and Ahmed's graduation from Bates.
His father flew from Cairo to watch him graduate and to watch him on Saturday afternoon receive that award. And so that was really cool as a coach to watch it all come full circle, and to have his closest family here. It was really cool. I had never met his father before. And so to meet his father 12 hours before Ahmed graduates and all the things that we've been through was really special. And that's what I'll remember,
Yeah, and then obviously take us back to when you were first recruiting him. What was your initial impressions of him as a high school junior or senior or whatnot?
Well, again, when Ahmed arrived in the States in his sophomore year of high school, he was a champion already. I mean, he never lost in high school. And so he was highly touted, obviously, a blue chip or a 5-star, whatever you want to call it. so everybody was looking at him, and so but we did what we always do, and we have the kids come up and visit and meet the team and meet the coaches, and we hooked him up with Lynn Lewis from the econ department, and he did just about everything that everyone else does when they visit. He struck me. He's a little bit more loquacious and outgoing now than he was in high school, and that's cool. That's really great to see that he's matured and found his own personality and voice. But his squash talent was undeniable then, as it is now, and it's been great. It's been a great 5-6 years. Yeah.
And obviously, we mentioned that he's graduated now, but next year, obviously, Ahmed Hatata will still be here as a senior. Do you expect to maybe see Ahmed coming back at all, just to visit and whatnot?
Sure. He'll, like I said, he'll always be part of our program. We don't close doors on anyone. And Ahmed Hatata and Ahmed Abdul-Khalik are close, and obviously Ahmed Hatata. A big part of the reason why he chose Bates was because of Ahmed Abdul-Khalik, and that's a fact. And so I'd imagine that Hatata will look to Ahmed in those times of need, whether he's there over the phone, over Skype, email, Facebook, whatever. We always try and keep the kids connected. And Ahmed Hatata is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to him having his own voice and his own personality out of the shadow a little bit of Ahmed Abdul-Khalik, to be perfectly honest. Even though Hatata has had his own success, I think he's lost 6 or 8 times in 3 years, and that's astounding as it is. But a lot of the attention and recognition has gone to Ahmed Abdul-Khalik, and rightly so.
Right, and then obviously when you lose a singular player like this and whatnot, from the program perspective, how's that change your perspective entering next year as a coach?
It doesn't change at all. We focus on the team. We try as best we can to focus on the team. Obviously, having the best player in college squash over the past 4 years has been both a blessing and a curse in a way, because a lot of the focus, as I said, has been on Ahmed Abdul-Khalik. But we have some other great players and some kids that are really working hard and want to win just as much as Ahmed has wanted to win. And we've always been for the team and about Bates and representing ourselves and our institution as best we could. And that won't change next year.
Yeah, and for next year, you have Ahmed Hatata, you have Darius Campbell, who's maybe one of the younger guys who really showed a lot of improvement this year. You expect a breakthrough year maybe from next year?
Yeah, I think the first years this past year, the rising sophomores, the Cannon twins, and then McLeod Abbott, all get it now. It's hard when you come in and maybe the players are bigger, faster, stronger, and you're coming from junior squash or prep school squash where it's a little bit different and the focus is less maybe on the team. They get it now, and I really expect that those 3 boys will break through and have a real impact. I mean, they had an impact last year, but we'll need them to have an impact. I expect Anirudh Nambiar to really step up as a junior. He's our only junior. He'll really step up in maybe a little bit of a secondary captain type role. And our first year class is deep. We have 4 or 5 kids that are coming in that can play in the top 9 or 10. And that should be really cool to see. It'll be really interesting to see the competition between the returners and then the incoming first years that are chomping at the bit to take some spots, and that'll be really great. It's always like this, but I'm looking forward to it because, as I said earlier, we focus on the team. And these past 4 years, not to discredit Ahmed, but we've had a lot of attention put on him, and so this will get back to business as usual, a little bit more about the team and the collective Bobcats.
Sure, and just last question, then any other thoughts on Ahmed getting Athlete of the Year and his career in general? Yeah,
well, I love the boy. I mean, he's given us so much. I've said this a few times. He's given us more than we've given him, and I honestly believe that. He's thrust us into the global notoriety and fame and the pictures and the articles and the trophies, and it's been amazing, and I thank him for all of that. I really appreciate everything he's done for us and for his teammates, getting his teammates better, and he's put in a lot of work off hours that a lot of people don't talk about or know or understand or see. And that's the reason for his success. I just really look forward to seeing what he does next in life. That's a big part of what we do and what my job is to help him, to enable him to do what he wants to do as a man after Bates. His career speaks for itself. 91 matches, 89 wins, 2 national championships, 2 male athletes of the year, sophomore year and senior year, undefeated his last 66 matches of his career. I hope that we have somebody like that in the future. I don't think that we ever will. I'm not sad that he's gone. I'm happy for him that he's been able to do that, and that it happened, right? I tend to look forward and look positively on things as opposed to retrospectively. And so I'm really happy and grateful, thankful, all of those words, for what he's done for me and for us and for Bates and for the squash program. It's been amazing 4 years.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, we'll take a look at the year's best in Bates athletics. There's a lot to celebrate and look forward to in all 31 varsity sports for the 2016-2017 season and beyond. Talk to you again in a week on the Bates Bobcast.
Bates, Bates.